Hello, thank you for joining me here on Movie Ninja, and today I'm going to be talking about the Coming to America sequel, the Coming to America 2, as it was titled in its title. So y'all, okay, I'm going to try to be fairly straightforward, like with this. I'm going to divide this particular review into two parts. I'm going to put what I liked up front, and then coming into the end, listing off the things that I didn't like so much. So what do I like about this? Okay, so with this film, and you have, of course, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, a lot of the original cast. They were very thorough in picking up where we left off, you know, for the audience, for as much we knew. Like, this doesn't happen the day after Akeem and Lisa are married. This does happen, you know, 3 decades later down the line, and there was a lot of attention to continuity. So I appreciate that. That was something that that I appreciate. A lot of great musical acts I was not expecting. They have a number of musical acts front-loaded in the film from a lot of really talented people, and also you have that, like, bringing in a lot of the new material and new characters. The new characters are, like, interesting, and I really was entertained by, particularly, like, Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes, Leslie Jones brought their A game to this. They brought their A game to this movie, like, certainly. So, like, and for the younger people, the people that, like, you know, that play Prince Akeem's son, LeVar, and Prince Akeem's daughters, and like that, they did a really good job. They did a really good job for their participation in this film. So, like I said, the ensemble cast, everybody, like, they came to work, and I appreciate that. Now, the things that I don't like as much, and this is where I'm going to get a little bit more descriptive. Not too spoilery, but I'm going to get a little bit more descriptive about what happens in the film. So, Prince Akeem has it known to him that he does have a son in America, and this is an extremely important, you know, bit of news because his father, Jafar, has now passed on, you know, and so he needs a royal heir, because what the movie would have us believe is that if he doesn't have a son to solidify a political alliance with their neighboring country, Nextdoria. I'm not making that up. I'm not trying to be cute or sarcastic. Their neighboring country is Nextdoria. Because there's next door. That was one of the things that... Like, when I first started watching the movie, that was one of the things that I said, oh boy, what am I in for here? Prince Akeem brings his son over from America because of events that happened with Leslie Jones. Leslie Jones, I have no doubt, I'm speaking specifically about the events in the movie. Leslie Jones, I have no doubt, she's a beautiful person, and she's a great character actress, and, you know, we've seen, like, whenever she is on screen, she's trying. She's trying so much, and she gives so much of her energy to this film. And she tries to work with it the best that she can. But these writers, they missed the mark, because especially when it comes to the exact story of how, you know, she got with Akeem and became the mother of his son. That was wrong, and it's kind of played up for laughs. Couple backpedaling. A lot of, like, they do make references. Hey, it's not the '80s anymore. And yeah, a lot of their humor kind of, like, if you remember from my trailer reaction, is like that was one of the things I was really hoping for. That there are some things in the original, and I love the original, still love the original, but there are some things where it's dependent on cringe humor, and I was hoping that that wouldn't be the case with this sequel. And it's a PG-13 movie. It's a PG-13 movie. And it's rightfully so, because there's not a whole lot, there's not like graphic profanity or graphic like nudity or anything like that, kind of like there was in the original film, which in the original film, like, I've kind of like, you know, talked to people like about like why did they say like there's so much nudity? Like there is nudity at the very beginning of Coming to America, the first film, but it's in one of the primary scenes, and it's like, well, what about all the dancers? Well, that's part of like, you know, just I always thought of it as like more of a like a folk dance type thing. I know that these are, you know, trained dancers, you know, like they're trained in choreography, you know, in the States or maybe in Europe or something like that. So I'm not saying that, but it's like I never really thought of them as like doing it for nudity's sake, because a lot of it was just so involved and so well done. I didn't even think about it. Like I didn't think about it as a kid, and as an adult that has much more respect for performing arts and things like that, I didn't think of that as vulgar. I didn't think of that as I'm not that prudish. I was like, oh, by the way, oh my goodness, a bare elbow. Oh my goodness. Anyways, so like it's PG-13, but something that I was hoping that they would stay on the same plateau with a lot of the humor, because yeah, in the first film, there's a little bit of cringe humor, a little bit by today's standards, but it was pretty classy. It's a really good romantic comedy. You know, it's the kind of like romantic comedy that guys watch, and they don't have a problem with this. Like this is engaging and fun to watch. This is really good. But anyway, but it seems that with this PG-13, yeah, it's not like rated R, but they kind of doubled down a lot on the lowbrow humor, or the way that they portrayed Leslie Jones and Tracy Morgan and, you know, the son LeVar as, well, they're not royalty, so they act a certain way that makes them seem like less sophisticated, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure I'm on board with this. Hey, whatever. Okay, side note, I love Tracy Morgan's character, like in this, because he reminds me so much of my Tio. And if my Tio ever sees this, that's a good thing, Tio, okay? Because he showcases like he loves his nephew, and he always has his back, and he, you know, like vows to support him no matter what hardship he goes through in life. So he reminds me of my uncle. He really does. But anyways, like Leslie Jones, Tracy Morgan, and they're really working like hard to work with this script that didn't really like work a lot with them. It in a lot of ways it didn't do right by them. But enough about that. So he brings his son over to Wakanda, Zamunda. You know what? I'm gonna keep that in. I'm gonna keep that. Hey, you have to laugh at yourself sometimes, okay? So, anyways, they're in Zamunda. He brings his son over. He says, hey, I need you to marry this princess. Akeem is very honest with him. He's very upfront about him. When they introduce him to General Easy, played by Wesley Snipes, who is, man, I want a movie about General Easy. Wow. Just like, that character seems so much more vibrant than a lot of the other characters. Again, to that a little bit like later. But he introduces him to General Isi, who has threatened military action if they don't have this wedding. And he introduces him to his daughter, who he declares as a princess. Hey, you don't argue too much with a warlord, okay? So it's like, okay, she's a princess. And LeVar, seeing this opportunity, you know, the way that they introduce themselves to each other is a mic battle. Like, he says, this is my daughter. And then she starts, she lights her mic on fire. And then he is automatically given, like Leslie Jones says, like, hey, you can't let her show us up like that, you know. we're from Queens. You can't, you can't let her do that. And so he gets a mic. They have a mic battle. And, it seems like at the very end of it, Akeem says like, hey, are you okay with marrying her? That's the reason that I sought you out. And that's the reason that I brought you over here. And LeVar is like, Mike, pretend I have a mic. Yes. Like, okay. So, like, I feel like he is still being very opportunistic, like, with this. And then we have an extended montage of him being, like, prepped for the wedding. And by the way, the wedding is in a week. That's very important for certain story notes here. So, the wedding that's taking place in a week, he has to get prepped for that. And the way he gets prepped for that is being educated on the royal history of the Zamundan aristocracy, and like that. So there's that education. There's a kind of like grooming, I guess you can call it. He has to look a certain way, compose himself a certain way, act with a certain air of royalty, dignity, and whatnot. Which, according to LeVar, who's a 30-year-old man, is like, oh, okay, I've never been to a graduation. I've never been to like a baptism. Like you understand at a certain point in your life, or you're supposed to, that there's a certain way that you act in certain situations, just with like, just outward respect and composure. And once again, this is the writing. This is not the character or like the actor. This is just the writing. It's like, oh, I have to walk a certain way. That's really like uppity and snobbish. Like, really? It's like, it's that hard? Anyways, okay. So during this week, he has to get educated. He has to get groomed. And he also has a very important task, which is a rite of manhood. For Zamundan royals, where he has to get whiskers off of a CG lion. Obviously, in the movie, it's not CG, but he has to get it off a CG lion. And I like that element of it because, like, he talks to his stepsister, and his stepsister says, well, you have to look at it. He says it's impossible. There's no way that like the men in this family have done this for generations, because that's a surefire way to get killed. And his sister says like, it's not just a physical feat. You're not just going to walk up to the lion and pluck out some whiskers and like that. You have to think about it, and it makes sense. Like, there's a rite of passage so you can prove that you're not only courageous, but you're intelligent. And, okay, that's a nice little, like, nuance thing. Oh, what about his three sisters, his three stepsisters? What about them? That's the movie's answer. Like, I think the actresses really are only on screen for maybe a grand total of 15 minutes in a movie that's sporting an almost 2-hour runtime. And I say maybe 15 minutes. It's probably less, I didn't clock it or anything like that. But like, we have some interaction, with LeVar and his sisters and like that, but one of the problems in the writing is that we have way too big of a cast here. And I've said this in like the past, you need to be able to easily focus in on who exactly the story is about, so that, the audience could be much more invested. And the thing is that because you have, Leslie Jones and her family that have been living in Queens for like 30 years. And then, of course, you have Akeem's royal family. And so there's, like a subplot of like, how do we blend this family together? How do we get along? How do we come to an understanding with each other? And all of that character like building, along with maintaining a lot of like skits that they did in the very first one, like you, of course, and we saw them in the trailer, you have the barbershop, you have that kind of like sketchy minister, like, okay, we all know we've known like people like that Arsenio Hall like minister at some point is like, okay, like, this guy what he's about, that's fine. What he's about, but the way that he kind of like interacts with people is kind of like, and that's supposed to be part of the humor, so that's fine. So you have the barbershop guys, the minister. Arsenio Hall also plays a like insanely ugly like shaman advisor or something. I don't think they ever give him a name or like that. It's ugly. He's ugly. His name is ugly, and he's like he had a vision that he, you know, like Akeem has a son and he's gonna help solve all these problems, but like Arsenio Hall commits to it, and it's clear that he's having fun. But anyways, so like. Like you have some old characters, you have some new characters. John Amos, of course. Louis Anderson makes a cameo appearance in a few scenes. James Earl Jones. It's like you have such a big cast that even a lot of your core characters, or who should be your core characters, like you have Leslie Jones, and you know her on the opposite side. You have Lisa, who is like Akeem's wife, and they hardly get any screen time. Lisa doesn't really get. I think she has less screen time than her daughters. And yeah, she has a lot of mixed feelings about this. Mixed feelings leaning over to negative, even though a lot of this situation isn't Akeem's fault. These writers. Anyways, but like, when you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, even though a lot of the situation isn't Akeem's fault, the idea that they have to be completely traditional is something that is really rubbing her the wrong way. It is really bothering her, especially because his eldest daughter has been preparing to be the leader of Zamunda her entire life. And why should... Okay, I'm the oldest. She has the proper education. She knows what is expected of leadership for the benefit of the Zamunda people. And so, like, there's, like, by all rights, because LeVar, and once again, this is just the way that they wrote the character, y'all. This is just the way that they wrote the character. He's a ticket scalper. He said that he was in retail. Maybe he's done retail. A bunch of us have done retail when we were first starting out in the workplace and like that. But, like, when we meet him initially, he's scalping tickets. He tried to get some position at either an accounting firm or an investment firm from the Dukes, when in the first film when Akeem gave them that like several $1,000s and he didn't realize like who he was giving it to. So that was like their wink and a nod to the very first film, where he is, like, is the worst possible interview that he could, but it was also an opportunity for LeVar to just kind of have a stand scene, just have a stand moment. It's like, okay, yeah, and he's right for doing things the way that he did, because an interviewer shouldn't really condescend you or insult you. That's true, but at the same time, it's like, and it's also right that he's like, okay, this is clearly not like a workplace for me, but it could have been handled a lot better, like, as well. This two to tango type thing. But anyway, once again, just the writing. It's the writing, y'all. Anyways, so back to it. The cast, way too big. And so in the course of this week, and he's passed a lot of the trials and he's done what he needs to do with regards to securing, his position as, the heir apparent, the prince, and he's gonna get married. And once again, in less than 7 days, because as the story goes on, hey, the clock's ticking. But he has a royal barber. And she, he feels like she understands that he's very frustrated, very fish out of water situation. And so he is, he's getting aggravated. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. I know that I agreed to do it, and I'm a 30-year-old man, or I'm supposed to be, but I don't know if I can do this. And so she kind of fills him in on like what his father went through and why he went to the United States and how he ended up with Lisa, because he wanted to be much more progressive. He wanted to break away things like that. And, you know, it's like, oh, okay, now I understand. And this barber, who is... Y'all don't judge, okay? Once again, this is the writing, okay? I'm only talking about writing. So, like, this barber, she's nice to him, she's kind, and he just immediately zeroes in on, oh, you're nice to me. I have to marry you. What? Okay. LeVar. Man, like, are you that guy? Are you that guy that thinks like anytime a cashier says anything besides have a nice day, or someone at a store helps you out or something, are you that guy that thinks that they're flirting with you? That they're trying to get romantically involved with you? Is that who you are, LeVar? Because that's the way you're written. This is a 30-year-old man who has it in his mind that because he's had a few conversations with this woman that he's known less than a week, that this is the one. And yeah, sometimes you have that, you meet someone, you have that initial spark, and, you know, most of us then start thinking, it's like, okay, maybe try to get to know this person a little bit better, you know, scan the field for what it is, because you don't want to make things awkward, and don't want to make things weird. Just because someone is nice to you, they do not owe you anything. Just because someone is nice or kind to you, you know, doesn't mean that they're romantically interested in you. And that's just, hey, free life lesson, okay? But LeVar, he has one conversation with this woman. Like, I was thinking, like, he talks to her several times, but they have one conversation after their coronation, sort of like, not coronation, but like their wedding announcement, sort of like party. And then he's like, oh, wow, I have to marry you. It's like, what? Anyways, and she responds, because she was written that way, and it's like, okay, you want to, okay, new Prince of Zamunda, you want to marry me? All right, fine. And he also heard a conversation. He also heard a conversation where General EC is talking to Akeem about, like, oh, I was like, General EC, he's being a jerk, I'll admit, you know, because that's the way his character is. He's supposed to be like a villainous character. And it's like, oh, you're using your son just for political gain like that. Akeem was upfront about this. Akeem was completely upfront about why he asked him here and what the expectation is for him. Anyways, y'all, but somehow he hears this, and he's like, oh no, I've been tricked. No, you're not. You knew what this was. They were very upfront with you. But then he meets the princess again at this party, and when they met earlier, she seemed very worldly and knowledgeable. She seemed self-assured, empowered, and strong and like that. But then they just make her a carbon copy of Yamani from the very first film. And this is like, okay, so, you know, try to get to know each other. What do you like? Whatever it is you like. What's your favorite kind of food? Whatever your favorite food is. They do this, like, bit by bit from the first films. Like, what? Like, once again, just like this woman who seemed like she was very, like I said, self-aware, self-assured, powerful and strong. Now, complete 180. Complete exorcist spin head, just like, whoa, what's going on now? Just like, she's completely submissive. She's completely submissive, and because of this 2-minute conversation, which I can be honest with you, that is weird. It's like if someone's like, oh, I would just dedicate my life to you, and like that, I was like, okay, like that. But when we met earlier, you seem completely different, but now you're telling me essentially you're just going to be my servant and we're going to be married to each other, which is exactly the situation that he wanted to avoid. Akeem, I'm talking about. He wanted to avoid with Yamani, because essentially she was so submissive that she would not really be, you know, someone to walk the road of life. She would be just a servant, you know, just completely submissive to whatever Akeem wanted. And boy, that character, Yamani, he's had a rough 3 decades, y'all. Oh, man. Anyways, so they go back to the United States. They get married. Akeem has this big epiphany, light bulb, revelation type moment where it's like, well, I guess I need to go about things a certain way. Like differently. I need to live up to my youthful ideals and whatnot. And so they go back there, it's like, you know, like, to hell with the consequences. Come what may, I'm going to do things my way. Oh, by the way, when Akeem was gone, General Isi had a fight with his 3 daughters, and apparently they're not going to go to war over anything. They were just having a trade dispute. Even though at the very beginning of the film, it was clear that, and several characters made it known, oh, by the way, General Isi, he's crazy. He's going to deep six all of us if we don't do things as he wants them to. Because he's like a warlord. But, yeah, apparently he has the scrap with Akeem's daughters. Okay. And so it's like, oh, yeah, all right. Just open up the borders, begin trade again, whatever, it's fine. And the movie wraps up in a very candy-coated, everybody wins sort of like situation. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. This has me talking for like way longer than I expected to talk about. And I have mixed feelings about it. I have mixed feelings about it for a number of reasons, but there's a lot to like about it. Like I said, it's clear that everybody is bringing their A game. And when I say everybody, I mean the original cast, the new cast, you know. Everybody is, you know, trying their hardest, like with this. But the writing is not really all that good, and a lot of this film also depends on, there's a lot that's padded out that's just stuff recalling stuff that happened in the very first film. With the expectation with sequels, the big challenge is this going to be, you know, like, is it going to be better than the original, or at the very least, is this going to be on the same level as the original? I really don't feel like this is on the same level as the original. And I feel that in and of itself, even though I lean more to liking it, because I watch it twice now, and it's not hard to watch. It's actually pretty, it's okay, you know? I also wanted to, you know, get some details down just to make sure that I got things straight before talking like this. That being said, y'all, I still feel it's probably going to be pretty divisive to a lot of fans, so my official scoring for this movie is 5 out of 10. Once again, there were a lot of things that were okay, and I wanted to like this movie more than I did. But yeah, it just wasn't at that same like scale like I felt, and so it lost some points there. It's still funny. It's still okay, even though I recognize that there's a lot of like crude humor and lowbrow humor. I also kind of know that I have a particular sort of like standard for like comedy, like myself. But yeah, it's okay for like the most part. Being PG-13, yeah, you know. So like watch this like with the older kids. Still stuff that's gonna gross them out, like a lot. But you know, it's like okay, you know, at least like. Even though a lot of people are calling this a family film, I don't think it's a family film. It's PG-13. It's for like, you know, like adults and, you know, some older kids. That's fine. But all in all, 5 out of 10. I wish I could give it more points, but if I'm being honest, I think this is gonna have people split. And a lot of people sort of like wonder like, well, what about all the extra stuff with like Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall? Well, yo, it's their movie. Eddie Murphy's the executive producer on this, and it's clear that he just wanted to do this to just have fun and have a good time revisiting, you know, memory lane and kind of trying to reinvent something, like with this younger cast and like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's their movie. They wanted to have fun doing skits. They had fun with the skits. So there you go. And that padding is not bad. It's not that bad. But like I said, 5 out of 10. What do you guys think? If you're... And you haven't heard me say this in a while if you've seen some of my videos. But thank you very much. If you've made it all the way to the end of this is one of the longer ones, definitely. If you've made it all the way to the end of this, you are a champ. Thank you so much. And have you seen the film? What did you think? Did you think that it's on par with the original? Did you like it more than the original? Let me know in the comments section. Anyways, thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.